Hey guys, Jordan here with another Finer Things review. And today we're going to talk about a game that premiered at Gen Con 2014 and has just now released, this being the second week of November. And this is a game that I'm sure you're familiar with the, should I say, family of games that it now kind of has. A game that kind of flew by my radar a little bit, and then when I saw the gameplay of it, I kind of piqued my interest, and so I wanted to give it a whirl and do a review of it, and that is Contagion, developed by Z-Man Games. It is plays 2 to 5 players, plays in about half an hour, 45 minutes. Let's take a look at what we get in the box and how to play, and I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. Okay, so here we have Contagion set up for 3 players. And for setup, you're going to shuffle the decks of cards here. We have city cards, we have infect disease cards here, new city cards there. And then we also have the event deck here, which is going to be preloaded. And what you're going to do is you're going to have some extras. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 3 out of each color. You have orange and blues. You're going to take 3 of each out and discard them out of the game. And then set up the rest of the deck so you have 1 blue, then 3, and then a blue, 3, and a blue, and then 3 on top. We have the score track up there with our appropriate colored score markers. And then each player is going to take 3 of their disease cubes and fill in their tracks on their player mats onto the 1 column. Like so. And then for a 3-player game, we're going to put out 8 cities onto the board with more or less players. That's going to differ. And the final thing for setup that you'll want to do is, after you determine who the first player is, going in reverse order, so starting with the last player, you're going to place 1 of your disease cubes out into a city. And then we are ready to start. So in Contagion, we are the disease trying to infect the cities of the world out here. So but starting with the first player is going to flip over 1 of these event cards. And these event cards just do different things during the game. For instance, this one says remove 1 disease cube from any city you are currently infecting. Most of these are good for the players, not always, but most of them usually help us do one of our actions more efficiently. You'll also note down here on the bottom it has a little picture of a city. That means that we would add another city into the playing area. And then the first player would start their turn. So on your turn, the first thing you do is you're going to look at this event card. And right underneath the title here, it has a title, jet streams trigger temperature changes. And underneath it, it's going to tell you when this card is going to take effect. So for instance, this one says play at the start of the turn. So at the start of the turn, we must resolve this effect. So you resolve your effects, and then you may take your actions. Now what's nice about these player boards, I can lift this off here and see, is that almost everything you need to know about the game and the actions you're going to take are written right here on your player board as a little reminder. So that's very helpful. But your actions available to you are, you may draw cards. You can do 2 actions in your turn, and you can repeat the actions if you wish. So one of the actions available to you is to draw cards. When you draw cards, you are drawing cards from the disease infection deck here, these colored cards. And you draw an amount of cards equal to whatever your incubation level is on your player mat here. So in this instance, we all start at 1. So if I did a draw action, I would draw one card, putting it into my hand. Another action that I can do is to infect one of the cities that is out here. Now, to infect a city, you're going to have a hand of cards here. And if you want to place a disease cube into a new city, that is a city that you do not already have a disease cube in, you're going to need to discard 2 cards that match the color of that city. So for instance, I have 2 orange cards here. I could play those, discarding them, and I'd be able to place disease into this city right here. Now, the number of cubes that I place into that city depends on my infection rate. So currently, again, this is at 1. So when I do an infect action, I would place only 1 cube into that city. Now, as this moves up on the track, I'll place 2, 3, or 4, whatever the appropriate number is, depending on what level I have. If I want to place a cube or infect into a city where I'm already at, I only need to play 1 card of that color. So in that instance, I would only have to play 1 orange. Now, let's say in this instance here, I have a green and a black. I don't have an orange. So for infecting either a new city or a city I'm already in, you can always use 2 cards of any color to become a wild. So I can use these 2 to make an orange, and then I'd be able to place another cube in that city there. And likewise, if I wanted to infect a new city and I did not have 2 of that color, of the city that I want to go into, I could discard either 1 orange and then 2 other colored cards to have 2 orange, or I could discard 4 randomly colored cards to make 2 orange to get in there. Now also, let's just talk about infecting. When you infect and you place your cubes, you're going to place them as high up on the city as you can. You can see there, they have little lines in there marking different rows. So if I'm the first player in that city, I go up to the top. Now, if another player comes in and infects, they're going to have to go underneath my disease cubes, regardless of the amount of cubes that they place. This is for breaking ties, when we're deciding who has the most infection in this city. If we are tied with the number of cubes, in this case, purple would win out over blue because purple got into that city first. Also, after infecting a city, you'll place your cubes, and once you place enough cubes that it matches this top number on the right, which is equal to the city's total population, so in millions. So in this case, there are 5 million people in Milan. Once a 5th cube goes on, that city is now eradicated, and we're going to score it. To score it, however many cubes are there, let's just, for the sake of argument, put that there. We have 3 people that have infected here. Let's say yellow comes and places this cube here. That equals, we have 5 cubes now, which equals to the total population of Milan. So this city is now eradicated, and we score it. So the person who had the most disease cubes in it is going to score 5 points. And now in this case, blue and purple both have 2 in there, but purple is higher up than blue, so purple would score 5 points, blue would get 3 points, and then yellow would get 2 points because they have the least amount of cubes in there. And we would score that on the appropriate track up here. Now, regardless who has the most disease cubes in that city, let's say yellow put in the final cube, whatever player puts in the final cube that makes the city eradicate itself, they are going to take this card, and on the bottom, it's going to have a special ability that it'll say either play immediately or it'll say play when you want. The play immediately is pretty straightforward. You immediately just must do this. So in this case, draw a card for each city you're currently infecting. So yellow would do that and then discard this city. And note also that the city then leaves the board, but we do not put out another city. The only way new cities come out are from the event cards up here. That is infecting. The other action you have available to you is to mutate your disease. And this is where these little tracks here on our player mat come into play. So when we mutate a disease, what we're doing is that we are bumping up the effectiveness of our disease by moving moving the levels up on our tracks here. So let's go over those briefly. The incubation rate, as I've said before, this is the number of cards that you will draw when you do a draw action. We all start at 1, but as these get moved up, then I could draw 2, 3, or 4 cubes. And the way I do that is, there's a little number here in the bottom right in yellow, next to where my cube is placed, in this case 2. That means I have to discard 2 cards of any color. It does not matter, they don't have to match. If I discard 2 cards, then I can move my cube up, and now every time I would draw 2 cards instead of 1. Similarly with my infection rate here, again, if I want to move it up to the next level, discard 2 cards, and I can move that up. Now every time that I do the infect action onto a city, I would place 2 cubes at a time instead of 1. And finally is the resistance track, which again, you can discard cards to move up. The resistance track is for when we react to these event cards up here. So in this case, let's just come back to this card. It says remove 1 disease cube from any city we're currently infecting. Resistance track allows us to negate some of the effects of the event cards. Some will make you discard cards, some will make you remove disease cubes, some will make you get rid of other cards and stuff like that. These are bad, we don't want that. So how we negate that is, when it's your turn and you're reacting to an event card, you can use your resistance track to help mitigate some of the bad effects. What that means is, say I had to discard 3 cards. I could use my resistance when it's time to do that, and I could just move it down 1, and since it was at level 2, that means I would have to discard 2 less cards, or if it was remove 4 disease cubes, I would only have to remove 2 at this point, because I've negated 2 of them. Also, if I wish and I still have more room, I could go ahead on the same turn, move my cube down another space, and this way I would have to now I could only discard 1 card or remove 1 disease cube. So that's how your 3 tracks work. And note too that all the prices for bumping them up are there. They are not all the same. And so those are the 3 main actions we have. We can draw cards, we can infect the cities that are on the board, or we can mutate our disease up so that we draw more cards, we infect at a higher rate, and we have a higher resistance to the bad effects. If you have nothing to do on your turn, and you're unable to do any actions, you may always pass and draw 1 card and end your turn. Okay, so one more thing I'd like to talk about is, let's talk about these event cards here, just a little more detail. I already explained that when you see the city icon there, you're going to place out a new city. That is the only way to put more cities out into the game. And on some of the cards, you will also see an icon of the skull and crossbones. What this means is, as we draw the event cards, we'll just lay them out across the board here. Once we get to 2 skull and crossbones that are laid out, anytime we get to 2 and then 4 and then 6 skull and crossbones out, we're going to do mid-game scoring, which is called death toll scoring. And in that case, what we would do, let me just populate the board a little here. Some players out. What we do in this case is, before we resolve the event, once we hit 2, 4, or 6, we're going to do death toll scoring. And what that is we look at the cities here, and the person who has the most disease cubes in that city is going to score the lowest number of points available for that city. So let's say here in Lagos, yellow is the only one there, so they would get 3 points. And again, here they're the only one there, so they'd get another 4 points. Purple is the only one here in Los Angeles, so they would score 2. And down here we have blue has 2 disease cubes and purple has 1, so blue has the majority, so they would score the 3 points there. So that may happen 1 to 3 times during the game. And then also, at the end of the game, once one of those 2 conditions has happened, either the event deck running out or only 2 cities in play, final scoring will happen. And what that is we're going to do one final death toll scoring, just like we would if we'd had 2, 4, 6 skulls come out. We'll do one final round to see who has the majority in the cities, and they're going to score a final, the lowest point there. And then we'll come to our player mats, and you're going to score points for each, depending on the placement of each of your cubes here. So in this case, I would score 2 points, 2 points, and 0 points. Just score points for each cube for whatever column they're in. In this case, yellow would score 3 points, 1, 1, and 1. Purple would score 2, 4, 0, so 4, and 1, 1, and 1, 3 there. And that is Pandemic Contagion. All right, now I'll have to edit one thing in because I want to talk about this. I don't know how I should mention that right there. Also, after you'll notice, like I said before, that we stack the deck 3 and then 3 orange cards and then 1 blue card. These blue cards are WHO cards, we call them. They're WHO, the World Health Organization. Now, these cards are generally going to be bad for the players. This is the world fighting back against the diseases happening to us. So in this case here, remove 3 disease cubes from any cities you are currently infecting. So these are often the cards that you're going to want to build up your resistance to try to negate some of those bad effects. Like I said, the orange ones are typically very good for the players, and the blue ones are typically very bad for the players. And the game is going to go around like this until 2 conditions happen. One of 2 conditions happen. Either, when this deck runs out, when the last card is played, we're going to play the final round, and then the most points will win the game. Similarly, if the amount of cities in play at any point during a player's turn, if there are only 2 cities left in play, regardless if another one comes out later, that is going to be the final turn of the game. And as soon as we're done with that, we'll do a final scoring, and again, most points wins. Okay, that is Pandemic Contagion. What can I say about this game? It is, obviously it's part of the Pandemic family of games, and that is one reason why I kind of left it alone at first when I had heard about this one coming up. I have Pandemic, I have some of the expansions and stuff, but honestly, I just kind of got burnt out on the whole Pandemic thing. Just, I'd played it a lot over the years and just was kind of done with it at that point. Some of the expansions to me just seem kind of variations on a theme. I'm basically still doing the same thing for the most part. So I kind of left this alone at first when I saw it played at Gen Con. But then later, I happened to watch a video of it and see some of the components in the gameplay. I thought, maybe I should take a look at this a little bit better. So, in Pandemic Contagion, you are the disease now instead of trying to eradicate the world, instead of the other way around, which maybe some people are like, I've heard some things on the forum like, maybe people have some issues about being a disease and eradicating people off of the board. But honestly, it's pretty abstract in the game. It really could have been anything else. You don't think of it as disease or killing people off or anything like that. It's more of the numbers and the strategy and the resource management that's in the game. This game has been hitting the table a lot with my group. One, because it does have such a short play time. This one really does play. It says half an hour on the box, and that's about right. Maybe with 5 players, it's going to extend out, but at half an hour, 45 minutes, once everyone knows how to play and kind of gets the gist, then it just goes really fast. So it's an easy one to get out, and I would certainly put this one, at least the time-wise, under as a filler. But there is a lot going on here. You know, the game itself is very easy to learn, much like the other pandemic, family of games. It's very easy to learn. There's only a few actions you can do, but how and when you decide to do those actions becomes monumental. And so even though I have a few choices, those choices become really difficult. And you can only do 2 actions once, and you're always going to find yourself like, God, if I could just do one more action, if I could just do one more thing this turn, I could get ahead and get a leap up on it. But I'd say we've been enjoying the heck out of it. We'll say a few things about it. I think that maybe there might be a little concern with the first player, because the first player doesn't really move. We just keep going around and around, playing in rounds. And since the first player is going to be the first one to get to react to those event cards, some of those, I feel like maybe that might give the first player a little bit of an advantage every now and then, because some of them are, removing disease cubes, not necessarily your own, from cities you're on. So if you're the first player to go and you're in competition with another player for a city, you can just bump them right out of there, So maybe there's a little concern with that. It doesn't seem to really create a runaway leader or anything like that. We haven't noticed anything where the person who goes first is always winning the game or anything. So not a big thing, but something that I kind of noticed, a little bit. Maybe that would come up in a forum or something like that. But I do think what I like about this is that the roles are reversed. So this is really kind of like, for me, kind of a breath of fresh air into the pandemic world. As I said, I kind of just got burnt out on the other stuff, but I'm really enjoying this game just because it plays so fast. It's easy choices, but easy actions, but hard choices and when to do those actions. So if you like Pandemic, then I would definitely check this out. It still has kind of that Pandemic feel, but not a lot. Like it's not like just an alternate version of Pandemic. Yes, thematically, it's tied to it, but it really does not play like Pandemic, hardly at all. You have those event cards that are happening, which are kind of like the cities popping and the disease coming out and having cities overrun and stuff like that. But this is a totally different beast that's going on here. Because a lot of it is it's area control. So you got those cities out on the board, and so you've got do I clump up on one city and just try to knock it out and score all the points for myself, or do I try to spread out, and make sure that I'm not missing out on points when other people pop cities like that? If this guy beat me in there, now the whole thing with the tiered level of like who gets in there first, second, third, breaking the ties, it becomes a huge thing sometimes when that person's beat me to it, but if I do a double infection, then I can take the city and score the most points or something like that. And on that, let me note too that when you're placing your cubes, like sometimes when you've moved your track up, so now I can place 3 or 4 cubes at a time, you're only going to place those cubes to the point that it equals the population. That being that if someone else has already gotten in there and they have, if it's a, 5 population point city, and they've already put 3 cubes in there, there's no way you're going to beat them out. Because as soon as you put the first, even if I could say place 4 cubes in a turn, if I could place 4 out there, I'd have 4 over your 3. Great, but the population's only 5. So that means you place 1, 2, the city pops. That's it. So once you have a majority in that city, you know that you're going to get the highest level of scoring for that city. So there's this whole thing of kind of racing towards certain cities. Do I want the ability that card, that city will give me, you know, if I'm the one to pop it? And then also with the mid-game scoring, I have seen this fluctuate the game wildly. Sometimes we've had games where, you know, we see 2, 4, and then 6 skulls. We've done three times we've done the mid-game scoring, which can be huge point swings. And then other games we played where it's only happened one time, you know, maybe early in the game or late in the game. You know, we only had one mid-game scoring, so our scores were a little bit lower, and it also affects your strategy. If you play some of those event cards and you don't see those skull and crossbones coming out, you know, you can start using that as a track to kind of alternate your strategy a little bit. If you don't see those skulls coming out, then maybe you want to just focus in on some cities and just focus on, you know, getting them in there and having the most and scoring the most points out of them. But if you start seeing those skulls coming out and you know that the second one's coming up soon, it could be the next card, or the fourth one or the sixth, then you might want to alternate your strategy and maybe spread out over the board so that you have the most cubes in a couple of different cities, so that, you know, we do that death toll scoring, and then suddenly you've netted, you know, 9, 10 points, maybe a whole city or more worth of points, basically for free. So I really like how that mechanic works and how it's going to alter your strategy for the game. If you like, so like I said, if you like Pandemic, you know, just the theme, and you like those family games, definitely check this out. It's totally a different game, but I would highly recommend it anyway. If you like light filler games, if you like you know, area control and some resource management, definitely check this game out too, because you've got those cards, and do I use them to infect more cities? Do I bump up my levels? Like, maybe I should discard these 2 cards so I can move my draw track up so that I can draw more cards, you know. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I have seen, I think, just about every kind of strategy work at some point. You know, some people will just get out there and just start spreading out and just putting as much disease cubes as they can out there on the board. And other people will tend to kind of turtle, slow down. They build those tracks up so that now I draw cards, I'm drawing, you know, 3 or 4 at a time, or I'm infecting cities with 3 or 4 cubes at a time. I think any of those, you know, are viable strategies. But either way, I must say that I really enjoy this game. It's one that I kind of passed over, but I would highly recommend you to, you know, not do what I did. Check it out, Pandemic Contagion. Give it a look. And I would like to give a few thanks. Wrapping up here, I'd like to thank Mark Bookwalter, who is the man behind the camera and who does all of our the intro and all the effect works and the editing for us. So thank you, Mark, for helping us out. And also I'd like to give a big shout out to Common Room Games here in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where we are filming, and which has this lovely wallpaper that you see behind me. So if you are in the Bloomington area, Bloomington, Indiana area, please check out Common Room Games. And that is Pandemic Contagion. And I'm Jordan with Finer Things Review, saying so long. And I hope this video helps you decide if this is the game for you or not.